What's going on, guys? It's the Unhinged Engineer here, and if you give me 15 minutes of your time, I'm going to teach you how to maximize your luck throughout your engineering career and job hunts within it. What do I mean by this? Well, we live in very uncertain times within the professional world, if not the world writ large, and getting an engineering job in 2026 can feel more like a series of dice rolls than something we can actually engineer our way into. So this string of dice rolls naturally leads to the question, how do we maximize the chances that as many of these dice rolls go our way as possible and therefore get the job we want? Well, I really do think that luck is not something mystical that we're either born with or we're not. I think it's something that can be crafted and cultivated over time. I think it's something I've been able to craft and cultivate over time to great success. And today I'm going to teach you how you can do it within your own engineering career. Like I said, I'm the Unhinged Engineer. I make professional development content for other engineers like myself. And if that's something you're interested in, like, comment, subscribe. But let's get right into the subject of today's video, which is that luck is where preparation meets opportunity. Now, I know this is a very old quote from an ancient philosopher, so you've probably heard it a million times, and I apologize in advance if this is trite, but I want to dig into this concept a little bit deeper. So luck is where preparation meets opportunity. This is an adage that I've tried to cling to throughout my career and my life, and like I said, it's worked pretty well so far. But using our engineering or analytic brains here a little bit, let's break this down. Luck is a probability inherently. It's the probability that things go our way, that we get something that we want. So if we've got this probability that we're calling luck, it's equal to the probability that we are prepared for something multiplied by the probability that opportunity actually comes our way. The probability of two things happening is the product of the two, and that's how we can determine how lucky we're gonna get. Like I said, these are two kind of objective functions that we can maximize independently of one another such that their product is as high as possible. So I'm gonna separate this video into two main parts. The first is gonna be about maximizing the probability that we are prepared for opportunities when they do come. And the second part of this video is gonna be about casting as wide a net as possible, increasing the probability that the opportunity actually does come to us so we can crush it because we're so prepared. And if we do this right and we do it for long enough, in the long run, we will get an opportunity that we want, we'll crush it, and we'll be sailing in the right direction. So let's start off talking about preparation. Like I said, it's about maximizing the probability that we are able to pounce on and crush an opportunity when it comes to us, right? So we don't want to be just sitting around unprepared for anything that might come our way. And then if we get lucky and something does come our way, our resume's not ready and our LinkedIn's out of date and we haven't practiced anything in months and we don't know how to speak to what's on our resume and we just fail. Like, we fail the opportunity and it doesn't matter that it ever came because we couldn't execute on it, right? So this is all about execution. The first thing I want to talk about is materials. It's always having materials up to date. What do I mean by materials? Well, the biggest one is definitely your resume. So if you're pretty good at writing resumes and maybe you just haven't kept it up to date with what you're doing exactly right now, if you're not looking for a new job, that's usually not a huge deal. But if you haven't updated your resume since you got out of college and you're a 7 years of experience engineer, that's pretty tough. That's going to be a lot of work to do. So make sure your resume is up to date. It's low hanging fruit. Beyond that, there's your LinkedIn. LinkedIn is typically a little different, but the nice thing about your LinkedIn is that you can have more stuff on there. Like, I think LinkedIn is a slot fest to begin with, so people are typically more forgiving of just having like a ton of stuff on there, even going all the way back to college. So your resume has to be very prim and proper and just the specific things that are relevant to whatever you're applying to. But your LinkedIn, it's okay to kind of regularly dump more stuff into the slot fest so that it's at least up to date enough. And then your resume can really be that fine-tuned scalpel that you can use to, again, execute on the opportunity when it comes. So keep your resume up to date. Keep your LinkedIn up to date. These are very, very simple things. Like, they're not complicated. LinkedIn is made to be easy, and resumes, there are a million videos about how to write a good resume, including a bunch of mine. So one last thing I want to talk about here is a personal portfolio. If you make a website or a PowerPoint deck or whatever else of all of your projects, it's really, really important that it's up to date with everything you've been doing, with what's going on in your life, with what your interests are, and that it's clean. As we get older, as we get further into our career, the bar for professionalism tends to slowly but surely rise. And so if you've got a portfolio that looks like crap and you want to hand it to someone who's looking to hire you for a senior position, that's probably not going to go well. And the sad reality with not just your personal portfolio, but also the other things I talked about here, is that sometimes having a bad one of these is worse than not having it at all, right? I hate to say that, because I'm always trying to motivate people to go the extra mile, and having a great resume, having a great LinkedIn, and having an awesome portfolio of projects is a great way to go above and beyond. But once you create one of these things, or all of them, you're signing up for an obligation to keep them up to date. Because again, the reality is, if you're putting something out there about yourself, you have this obligation to keep it up to date. Otherwise, you're going to look like somebody who's lazy. It's not fair. You should get bonus points for just having it in the first place, but that's not the world we're living in. We try to talk about reality on this channel. So always have all these materials up to date. So the second an opportunity comes your way, you can go, here's my resume, follow me on LinkedIn, whatever. Here's all the projects I've done, send this to the hiring manager, let me know what's of interest to them and what's not. Immediately you wanna be able to execute when someone comes to you saying, hey, I have a job you might be interested in, or you might be a good fit for. Having these things up to snuff is critical to pouncing on that opportunity so you're ready to rock. The next thing here is staying sharp. So staying sharp on interviews, there's a lot to unpack here because it's all about just making sure you're in a position to perform well in interviews, which again is a very, very broad category of ways to prepare. The reality is we can't prepare for everything. And just like as an example, I don't really do a lot of leak code. So there have been times in my past, if an interview or an opportunity came to me and interviewing for that opportunity required leak code, I would not be prepared at all to execute on it. And so it would either turn into a cram fest or I just wouldn't perform well. Versus there are other people out there, maybe they've crushed every leak code problem under the sun, which I have not, but they don't have any behavioral interview stories prepared. And so they got to prepare for it at the last minute, or if they really want to wing it, which I wouldn't recommend, they have to come up with these stories on the spot. So it's all about staying sharp and staying prepared in the ways that are of interest to you. So like I said, there's stuff like leak code and other technical interview questions, right? If you know there's a bank of questions that are typically asked that you've experienced before, just having them in the back of your mind and roughly understanding how you talk about it is a huge, huge leg up. Next one here, behavioral interview stories. And then the last one worth discussing is all those materials that I talked about earlier, your resume, your LinkedIn, your projects, just being able to speak to them. You don't want to have something on there that you're presenting to a potential employer as something that you're ready and willing to speak to that you don't remember anything from, right? And then you're going to sound like you didn't actually do it or whatever, or it's embellished or whatever else. You really want to make sure that you're ready and prepped to speak to anything on any of these materials you put out there about yourself. I want to talk about trajectory. Having in the back of your mind where you want to be, where you're going. So another quote by Seneca, beyond just luck is where preparation meets opportunity, is that to a man who knows not where he sails, no wind is favorable. If we don't know where we're trying to get to, nothing we do is going to get us there because we don't know where we're going. We're just moving around randomly. We're flailing. So trajectory is all about understanding what's the career direction that we want to go in, so that when opportunities come, we can discern between them as what's fluff, what's noise, what's something that we're not really interested in or could even detract from the progression we're going for, or what's something that's really, really promising that I should invest a ton of energy and effort into, which is a limited resource, by the way. What should we invest a ton of energy and effort into to get where we're trying to go? So discerning between opportunities, being prepared to do that, that's what this career trajectory or direction piece is all about. So know where you're trying to go. Know where you're trying to go. Know what's going to be asked of you when you're interviewing for jobs like that, and always have all of your materials up to date as much as possible. Now that we talked about preparation, let's discuss opportunities. So the opportunities portion of this video is really about how do we maximize the number of opportunities that come our way, that come across our desk that we could apply to and ultimately be considered for a job in. So obviously, to get the blunt part out of the way, the more applications you put out there, the more opportunities to get a job you have, right? And that's duh. That's not revolutionary to anybody. I'm just gonna move on at this point. Beyond just cold applications, which in general are not the most effective form of getting a job, right? Like I would say a good amount of my job prospects and positions I actually got came from cold applications in the past, but a lot of them didn't. A lot of them came from stuff like internships. It came from people I knew. It came from going to the same school as people at a career fair, whatever. Beyond just cold applying, what are some other ways? There's tons of networking events, of course, especially if you're still in school. Like people underestimate how many networking events colleges provide. Now I know colleges are not the gold standard for preparing their students for actually going out there and getting a job, but in terms of networking events and career fairs, I've been very impressed with what colleges put together and the kinds of opportunities they put in front of people physically. There's tons of digital opportunities, right? a lot of these companies, they have Reddit boards for, people talking about the company itself, opportunities at the company, what it's like working there. Reddit, Discords, if you really want to get into it, right? There are lots of Discords of people who are trying to get into certain companies. I've seen these before. I've been invited to them before. I've even joined some of them before, right? There's just people, a bunch hanging out in the chat, talking about how the hell do I get into company X. There are lots of ways to meet people online. And by the way, not all of these are sketchy. Like, lots of these are manned by actual employees and or recruiters. These companies know social media exists. Like, most of the interesting tech companies out there are not full of dinosaurs. So they're looking at these boards just as much as you are. Going out there, looking at Reddit, Discord, other forms of connecting with other people online is a really good way to find new opportunities. And the last point here is staying in touch with people you maybe didn't meet online. So maybe people you worked with at previous jobs, people you went to school with. There's a really strong intangible benefit to sustaining and cultivating a network of people who know about you, they know what you're up to, they're invested in your career because you're invested in their career, you've had a good relationship in the past. Just keeping those alive and staying in touch with these people is huge, because if you're ever in a pinch, be it you don't like your current job and you want a new one, or you're out of a job and are looking for one quick, this can be a life preserver that you wouldn't have had otherwise. So definitely stay in touch with people that you actually have a real world connection with from your past as much as possible. As our lives go on, we have lots of responsibilities and time progresses. It gets harder and harder to do this, but it's really, really worth the effort. I really wish I've done this even more than I already have. So I would highly recommend cultivating a network of people that you know. So all in, these are just a few of the ways to increase the surface area of different ways you can get engineering opportunities. In sum, what did we discuss in this video? One, luck is where preparation meets opportunity. The engineering field, the tech field, whatever you want to call it, is a war zone right now, and it can feel like a game of chance whether or not you're actually going to be able to get a job and progress your career in the way that a lot of us were promised when we went to school. It feels like a game of chance. So luck is about maximizing the probability that that game of chance goes our way. And to do that, there's two main components. Preparation, so the probability that when an opportunity comes, we're able to execute on it, and opportunity, so the probability that that opportunity we're looking for actually comes across our desk. So maximizing the two of these, which are independent, although related, is the best way to maximize the probability that we get lucky and wind up where we want to be. Preparation is really about being prepared to pounce on an opportunity when it comes. So that stretches from everything like presenting yourself from the jump as very professional and very ready to go, very prepared for this opportunity, staying sharp so that you actually crush the opportunity when it comes across your desk. Like, you don't want to just flame out in the first round of the interview. You really want to make sure that you have the legs to get all the way through that process. And then knowing where you're trying to get to so you can actually discern between different opportunities as they come up. And then opportunities is all about just casting a really wide net and trying to open up as many channels as we can for opportunities to come our way. This is kind of like dating, right? Dating is just as much about attracting the right people and being in the right places at the right time as it is about actually putting yourself out there and going after the things you want. Getting opportunities in the professional world is the same exact way here. Yeah, I wish you the best of luck in your engineering careers. Like I said, I'm the Unhinged Engineer. I make professional development content for other engineers like myself. And if that's something you're interested in, definitely like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.